My fiancée mocked our relationship online and said I wasn't on her level, but I stayed calm and made everyone finally see who she really was. I'm a 28-year-old male animator based in Colorado. I pull in around $85,000 freelancing for various game studios, specializing in character rigging and motion dynamics, the technical stuff that makes games feel real. I've been grinding since art school, where I graduated top of my class and built my reputation one sleepless night at a time. Currently, I'm the lead animator on a dark fantasy RPG that's getting serious industry buzz. It just got featured in major gaming publications and scored a spotlight on our combat system, which I designed from scratch after months of 80-hour weeks. The developers found me through some animation work I did for a mobile game that exploded last year and hit 15 million downloads. That project literally changed my career trajectory overnight. My setup is pretty sick. A custom-built rig with 64 gigabytes of RAM, an RTX 4090, and dual SSDs. It cost me nearly 3 months' rent, but it's more than earned its keep. Even my keyboard's hand-tuned. This desk is where some of the industry's cleanest combat animations are born. When I'm not destroying my posture at my desk, I escape to the garage with my Harley Sportster 883. I found it for $4,500 with a blown engine and rebuilt it myself with my dad's help over one brutal winter. I swapped the stock pipes for Vance and Heinz shorts, upgraded the air intake, and remapped the ECU to squeeze out an extra 15% horsepower. Those mountain roads on early mornings, with that engine rumbling beneath me, are pure freedom. I've crashed that bike twice. Once on a hairpin turn in the mountains when I was pushing too hard, and once when a soccer mom in an SUV changed lanes without looking. The first crash left me with a fractured wrist and a bike that needed 3 weeks of repairs. The second one got me a sweet insurance payout that funded my upgraded exhaust system. I still have the scars on my right arm from sliding across the pavement at 45 miles per hour. Worth it. My background is solidly middle class. My dad's been a mechanic at the same motorcycle shop for over 30 years, and my mom's a trauma nurse at the local hospital. They worked overtime for years to put me through college, so their work ethic is basically encoded in my DNA. Growing up, I watched my dad turn wrenches 60-plus hours a week just to keep us afloat. That stuff shapes you in ways you don't fully understand until later. Dad taught me how to rebuild engines by the time I was 14. We'd spend weekends in our cramped garage, hands covered in grease, classic rock playing in the background. He never said much. He's not that type of guy. But I learned more from those silent afternoons about dedication and craftsmanship than any classroom could teach. Mom would bring us sandwiches and just shake her head at the disaster zone we'd created, but I could see the pride in her eyes. I met my fiancée Rebecca, a 25-year-old female, at an industry mixer 4 years ago. She was stunning, brunette, fit, killer smile, the whole package. She worked as a social media director for a marketing agency downtown and had her own Instagram following of around 50,000. The first night we met, she was wearing a tight black dress that had every guy in the room doing double takes. But what caught my attention was how she was the only person asking intelligent questions during the panel discussion on animation technology. My buddy Marco warned me that night, saying she had a reputation for being high maintenance. I should have listened. Instead, I was thinking with the wrong head when she suggested we grab coffee sometime to discuss industry connections. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into her place. And before I knew it, I was completely blindsided by how quickly we connected. As I'm typing this out, I'm thinking how the red flags were flashing neon from day one. On our first date, she made the waiter retake our food photos 3 times because the lighting wasn't Instagram-worthy, then spent 20 minutes editing them while her food got cold. I thought it was kind of weird, but brushed it off as a professional habit. Turns out it was just the tip of the iceberg of crazy. By 6 months in, Rebecca had already started her improvement project on me. First, there were subtle comments about my wardrobe. "Babe, you could look so much better if you just updated your style a little." Then came targeted remarks about my glasses, how they hid my best features and were so last decade. She scheduled a laser eye surgery consultation without even telling me, presenting it as a surprise gift. When I expressed hesitation, she spent the next week making little comments about how much more attractive I'd be without glasses, showing me before and after photos of guys who'd gotten the surgery. Then she started on my clothing. My wardrobe was pretty typical animator fare: comfortable jeans, hoodies, gaming t-shirts, sneakers, nothing fancy but clean and functional. Rebecca didn't like it. She'd always try to make me wear her pics, saying she was just trying to help me make better impressions. I still remember how she'd pout whenever I wore those band tees and comic shirts. We got engaged after 2 years. I know, massive mistake. I'd saved for 6 months to buy a 1.5-carat ring that I thought was beautiful. When I proposed at a scenic overlook after a day-long hike, which she complained about the entire time, her first reaction wasn't joy. It was to immediately start planning how to photograph the ring for social media. Later that night, I overheard her telling her friend the ring was cute but modest. The moment I got on one knee, She went into director mode, telling me to move slightly to the left because the lighting is better and asking if I could do it again after she set up her phone on a self-timer. Not a single authentic reaction, just concern about how it would look on her feed. I should have packed up the ring and headed home alone right then. There was this time when she invited her influencer friends over, while I was on a critical deadline. When I tried to explain I needed to work, she rolled her eyes and told them loudly, "He's always like this. No concept of networking or career advancement." Later I heard her telling them I was totally unsociable and needed to learn how to connect with the right people. This from someone who'd never once asked a substantive question about my work or shown any real interest in understanding what I actually did. Her friends were all carbon copies of her, obsessed with appearances, constantly taking selfies in our apartment, rearranging our stuff to make better backgrounds for their photos. She'd constantly compare me to her friends' partners in finance and law, asking why I couldn't just do animations for big brands instead, since they probably pay better, as if my passion for creating groundbreaking game animations was some cute hobby I could swap out for corporate gigs just to earn more. One night I caught her on FaceTime with her mom, saying she was still working on Tyler's career trajectory and had plans to get him connected with actual professionals. When I confronted her, she twisted it around, claiming she was just trying to help us build a better future together. Somehow I ended up apologizing for misunderstanding her intentions. That was her superpower, making me feel like the unreasonable one. When I called out her behavior, my parents saw through her immediately. The first time they visited, my dad pulled me aside while we were grilling on the patio. "Son, I don't mean to overstep, but that woman seems high maintenance. You sure about this?" I brushed it off, thinking he just didn't understand modern relationships. Another warning ignored. That same visit, Rebecca spent the entire weekend putting on a show. She asked my dad about his motorcycle shop with fake enthusiasm, then immediately changed the subject when he started getting into details about engine rebuilds. Mom caught her reapplying makeup in the bathroom every hour for photos. The most telling moment was when my parents brought over some old family albums. Rebecca flipped through them for about 30 seconds, made some comment about how vintage they looked, then suggested we should recreate some of these but with better lighting. My mom's face said it all, but I was still too blind to see it. We moved in together after the engagement. The lease was in my name because she had credit issues. Translation, maxed out cards, defaulted loans, and a credit score in the toilet. I agreed to cover the deposit and put everything under my name while she rebuilt her credit. I should have seen that massive red flag for what it was. 2 weeks later, she completely rearranged our place while I was at a 3-day industry conference. I came home exhausted at 1 a.m. to find my gaming memorabilia collection, limited edition pieces I'd spent years collecting, packed away in storage bins. My posters were gone, my office rearranged, and even my desk had been swapped for some minimalist white thing that looked better in photos but was completely impractical for long work sessions. When I asked what happened, she just said, "Babe, I can't live in a bachelor pad forever. It's time your place evolved, just like you need to." Despite all this, we still functioned as a couple. We had our routines, our moments, our inside jokes. I was killing it professionally. She was building her social media empire. On the surface, things seemed to work, but those moments when someone reveals who they really are, they add up. I just wasn't ready to do the math. I wasn't active online, so I never followed Rebecca on social media. Her content was all luxury unboxings, sponsored posts, and filtered selfies. Not really my thing. Plus, I was drowning in work, leading an ambitious animation project for the RPG, working 60 to 70-hour weeks, driving myself to create something revolutionary in game animation. The battle mechanics I was developing were getting serious attention in gaming circles. I'd created an adaptive animation system that responded to player input in milliseconds, making combat feel incredibly fluid and reactive. The lead designer had basically given me carte blanche after seeing my early prototypes. That kind of creative freedom is rare in the industry, and I was determined to make the most of it. My buddy Matt and I always meet up Thursdays at a low-key bar downtown. We go back to freshman year of college, both animation majors, though he'd gone the corporate route, doing motion graphics for tech clients. This particular Thursday, he showed up looking seriously pissed. Without saying a word, he slid his phone across the table. "Dude, what the actual fuck is this? Isn't this your apartment?" It was a screenshot of Rebecca's latest post. There I was in the background, at my desk, headphones on, completely focused on an animation sequence. The caption read, "Dating down builds character. Sometimes you have to see the potential others miss. Hashtag fixer-upper, hashtag just project fiancé, hashtag work in progress." My stomach dropped like I'd hit a pothole at 80 miles per hour on my Harley. With shaking hands, I opened Instagram and went to her profile. The post already had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, girl. The way he has no idea you're even taking this pic. The ultimate renovation project, strategic investment, or time to upgrade before the wedding? Rebecca's replies were even worse. Wedding's still a year away. Plenty of time to find an upgrade if necessary, and the apartment's in my name anyway, LOL. A straight-up lie. since I was the only one on the lease. Sometimes you have to be the one with ambition in the relationship. Her friends, women I'd had dinner with, helped move furniture, even bought birthday gifts for, were all hyping her up. One commented, "At least he's decent arm candy for the wedding photos," to which Rebecca replied, "That's literally why I keep him around." The photo itself was bad enough. I was in the zone working on a complex animation sequence, completely unaware she was photographing me. But that caption and her replies to comments, it was like being punched in the gut, while someone simultaneously dumped ice water down my back. Matt watched my face as I scrolled through the comments, each one worse than the last. He'd always been suspicious of Rebecca, but had kept his opinions mostly to himself out of respect for me. Now he just looked pissed and concerned. "There's more," he said grimly. "Amber showed me her private account too." It's bad, man. This wasn't just a one-off post. It was a whole freaking series she'd been running for months called Project Fiancée, where she documented her attempts to upgrade me, like I was some fixer-upper house. There were dozens of posts I'd never seen, all mocking everything from my career choices to my family background. I felt like I'd been sucker-punched. The woman I was planning to marry, who I'd been supporting financially while she chased influencer fame, had been using me as content fodder, openly mocking me to thousands of strangers. I didn't confront Rebecca right away. I called in sick the next day and started digging while she was at work. What I found made me physically sick. She had an entire highlight reel called The Upgrade with candid shots of me working, sleeping, or just existing, all captioned with condescending remarks about how she was investing in potential and seeing the diamond in the rough. She'd created a hashtag Rebecca Renovates, documenting changes she'd inspired in me, from haircuts to clothes to career decisions. There were before and after posts of my appearance that I hadn't even realized she was documenting, side-by-side comparisons from when we first met versus now, with captions like, "Still a work in progress, but getting there." She'd take credit for everything, from my recent promotion to a new client I'd landed through my own professional network. One post showed her holding up 2 of my t-shirts, my favorite Doom shirt that I'd had since college, and some designer button-down she'd bought me. The caption read, "Left is what I started with. Right is where we're heading. The journey of 1,000 style upgrades begins with a single shirt. Hashtag fixer-upper fiancé. Hashtag fashion intervention." The comments were full of her friends laughing about how she was saving me from myself and doing God's work. She had a private Instagram account I never knew about, with about 200 followers. Her close friends, sister, and colleagues, Matt's girlfriend, Amber, followed this account and agreed to show me what was posted there. It was brutal, straight-up mockery of everything about me. Screenshots of our private texts where she'd ask her followers for advice on how to train me better. Photos of gifts I'd given her, captioned, "Trying to be grateful, but seriously, from a department store?" There was a post about the anniversary dinner I spent weeks planning, where I took her to an exclusive restaurant that cost nearly a full paycheck. The caption, "Cute effort, but he picked a place that's so last season. At least the lighting was good for content." She documented the entire evening with secretly taken photos, me looking at the menu, talking to the waiter, even a shot of me in mid-bite with some snarky comment about how I still needed fine dining training, all while I thought we were having this romantic celebration of our relationship. She even mocked my proposal online, calling the ring a start and tagging it hashtag settling for now. This after I'd spent months designing it with a local jeweler to match her eye color. She posted close-ups critiquing the setting, then compared it side by side with her friend's 3-carat rock, asking followers to vote. I remembered every freelance project I'd taken just to afford that ring, and I felt sick. The worst was a video of me asleep, where she was giving a tour of my side of the closet, mocking each item of clothing, explaining to her followers what she was allowing me to keep versus what was getting phased out. She even held up family photos, making fun of my parents' middle-class lifestyle and how my childhood home looked exactly like you'd expect. In one particularly cruel post, she'd filmed me talking about a major achievement at work, landing a high-profile client that could lead to serious career advancement. I remembered that conversation, how excited I was to share the news with her, thinking she'd be proud. In the video, you can see me animatedly explaining the project while she nodded along. The caption, listening to him talk about his little computer drawings for 20 minutes. The things we do for love, nod and smile. My blood was boiling when I found a screenshot of me working on my Harley, captioned, "Every time he wastes money on this stupid motorcycle is less we can spend on a proper vacation. How do I get him to sell this junk without seeming controlling? Help a sister out." One commenter suggested she should accidentally back into it with her car so I'd have to pay for repairs, then realize it wasn't worth fixing. Another said she should start planning expensive trips and guilt me about the bike being the reason we couldn't go. Rebecca had responded with fire emojis and taking notes. That bike was my dad's gift to me for graduating college. We'd rebuilt it together from parts, spending countless weekends getting our hands dirty, bonding over something that meant the world to both of us. And here was my fiancée, actively plotting to get rid of it because it didn't fit her Instagram aesthetic. 3 years of my life, planning a future with someone who saw me as nothing but a project and a punchline. I called Matt. I need some favors. Name it, he said without hesitation. I need to gather evidence, screenshots, recordings, anything I can get. I'll talk to Amber, she has access to the private accounts, and I need a place to crash soon. Matt didn't ask questions or give me some speech about working it out. He just said, my guest room is yours for as long as you need it, and immediately started helping me plan. That's the difference between real friends and the fake social circle Rebecca had built. When shit hits the fan, I spent the next week in a state of controlled rage, documenting everything while pretending nothing was wrong. Rebecca, completely clueless about what I discovered, kept posting about me, including a humiliating video where she surprised me with new clothes while telling her followers how I dressed like a college student despite being almost 30. I smiled through it, acting grateful while plotting my exit. Meanwhile, I was methodically building my case. Every time she posted something new, I saved it. Every time she made some condescending comment about my career or interests, I added it to my growing file of evidence. I became a digital forensics expert overnight, capturing everything before she could delete it or claim I was making it up. First, I hit up Marcos, a college buddy who specialized in social media law. I asked about the legality of using someone's image repeatedly without consent, especially when it's monetized through brand deals. If she's making money off content featuring you prominently without a release, especially if it's disparaging, you potentially have a case, he explained, particularly if you can prove damages to your reputation or career. Marcos drafted a formal cease and desist letter that outlined potential legal consequences if she continued using my image, including potential damages in the six-figure range. I kept this in my back pocket for the right moment. Next, I talked to former colleagues who'd seen Rebecca's posts. They confirmed the content had spread through industry circles. One studio head admitted he hadn't considered me for a recent high-profile project because it seemed like you had personal issues to sort out first, based on what your fiancé was posting. I got this in writing, documented, evidence of professional damage. That hit me hard. I'd wondered why that particular studio hadn't responded to my portfolio submission, especially since they'd previously expressed interest in my work. Finding out it was because Rebecca's posts were making me look unprofessional was like discovering someone had been sabotaging job interviews behind my back, which, essentially, she had been. I quietly spoke with my landlord, showing him some of Rebecca's posts where she claimed to own the apartment. He was furious at the misrepresentation and immediately provided eviction paperwork I could use at my discretion. Since Rebecca wasn't actually on the lease despite what she told everyone, I had every right to have her removed. The landlord, a straight-shooting older guy who'd always been fair with me, was genuinely pissed. I don't like liars, he told me bluntly. And I sure as hell don't like someone claiming ownership of property that isn't theirs. You let me know when you want to serve those papers, and I'll make sure everything is handled legally. Then I reached out to contacts at 3 luxury brands Rebecca frequently tagged in sponsored content. I didn't even have to embellish anything, just showed them selected posts from her private account where she mocked their products and PR teams while publicly praising them. Their responses were immediate and decisive. All 3 launched internal reviews of their influencer relationships. One of the brands, a high-end makeup company, had just sent her nearly $3,000 worth of products to feature. In public posts, she was calling their line revolutionary and life-changing. In her private account, she'd posted photos of the same products with captions like overpriced garbage, but the packaging photographs well, and wouldn't use this crap if they weren't paying me. The brand's marketing director personally thanked me for the heads up. Most importantly, I connected with Amber, who had access to the private Instagram and a group chat called Trophy Wife Training, where Rebecca and her friends shared tactics for molding their mediocre men into better providers. Amber was disgusted by the whole thing and agreed to help me gather evidence. The Trophy Wife Training Group was perhaps the most disturbing discovery of all. It was basically a playbook for emotional manipulation, with Rebecca as one of the most active contributors. They had actual strategies for breaking down resistance when their partners didn't want to change careers or spending habits. One post from Rebecca detailed how she deliberately scheduled social events with her friends' high-earning husbands to make me feel inadequate about my career path. By the end of the week, I had everything: screenshots, screen recordings, text messages, statements about the professional impact, and legal advice on my options. I also quietly moved my most important possessions to Matt's place. I discovered through our shared laptop that Rebecca had over $87,000 in credit card debt spread across 8 cards, was 2 months behind on car payments, and had taken out a $15,000 loan for the wedding she was secretly spending on herself, all while critiquing my financial decisions and presenting herself as the financially savvy one in our relationship. Her secret spending was mind-blowing: designer clothes with tags still on, hidden in the back of her closet, subscription boxes she'd never mentioned, high-end makeup hoarded in drawers, and a secret credit card statement showing she'd spent over $5,000 on a weekend trip with her friends that she'd told me was mostly covered by a brand deal. The time was right. I was done being someone's project. I waited until Rebecca's big meeting with a clothing brand was confirmed. The one she was calling her breakthrough opportunity, a 5-figure deal that could launch her into bigger sponsorships. Perfect timing. That evening, I got home before her, sat at the kitchen table with a single folder in front of me, and waited. When I heard her key in the lock, I didn't move. "Babe, you home early?" she called out, dropping her bags by the door. She walked into the kitchen and froze when she saw my expression. "We need to talk," I said calmly, sliding my phone across the table. Her Instagram profile was open, specifically her #ProjectFiancée highlight reel. Her face went from confused to defensive in a split second. "It's just content, Tyler. Don't be so sensitive, is it?" I opened the folder and started laying out the screenshots, dozens of them from her private account. The posts mocking my career, my family, my hobbies. The group chats where she discussed manipulating me. The comments where she openly admitted to using me as a stepping stone. The color drained from her face as she realized the extent of what I had discovered. Her eyes darted across the table, taking in screenshot after screenshot of her worst moments. All the cruel jokes, the manipulation tactics, the lies she'd told about our relationship. "Where did you get these?" she demanded, trying to snatch them away. I just held up my hand and continued placing them on the table methodically, like dealing cards. "Keep your hands off my property," I said, my voice level but firm. "You've done enough damage already. Babe, you're taking this way out of context. Everyone exaggerates on social media. It's just for engagement." "Engagement?" I repeated, like when you told your followers my proposal was disappointing but you were settling for now, or when you mocked my parents for being middle class. Was that for engagement too? I laid down a particularly damning screenshot, her post about my parents' home, where she'd zoomed in on family photos from my childhood, mocking everything from my mom's hairstyle to the modest furniture in our living room. The comments from her friends were even worse, with one writing, "OMG, did they shop at Walmart?" and Rebecca responding with laughing emojis. "Tyler, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. I've seen everything, every post, every comment, every message where you treated our relationship like some kind of reality show and me like your personal renovation project." I slid the cease and desist letter across the table. "This is from my lawyer. You're to remove all content featuring me immediately." She skimmed it, her face paling. "You're suing me? That's just the beginning." I pulled out my laptop and showed her the emails I'd sent to her agency, the luxury brand she worked with, and the clothing brand she was meeting with tomorrow. Each email contained specific examples of her duplicity, showing how she mocked the same brands she was being paid to promote. Her eyes widened with genuine terror as she realized what this meant. Her carefully curated influencer career, built on fake enthusiasm and strategic relationships, was about to implode. "You had no right," she whispered, voice shaking. "Actually, I had every right. You used my image without consent to make money. You damaged my professional reputation. You lied about our living situation." I pulled out the eviction notice. "Speaking of which, you have 30 days to find a new place. Surprise, the apartment is actually in my name, not yours, like you've been telling everyone." That hit her like a physical blow. The apartment had been central to her content, the backdrop for countless posts about her place and how she designed everything herself. She'd even done sponsored content with home decor brands presenting herself as the property owner. "You can't do this," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "This is my career, Tyler. Correction, it was your career. Should have thought about that before turning your fiancé into content." I stood up, grabbing my jacket. "I'll be back tomorrow with Matt to get the rest of my things. Don't bother calling or texting. I've already blocked your number. Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, suddenly looking very small. "Not my problem. Maybe one of those friends who enjoyed laughing at me has a spare couch." I headed for the door, then turned back. "Oh, and that wedding venue you've been posting about? Already canceled. The deposit has been refunded to my account." The wedding venue cancellation was particularly satisfying. She'd been posting about it for months, claiming she'd discovered this perfect location that I had actually found, and sharing all her elaborate plans. She'd even started collaborating with vendors, using the venue as leverage. All of that was now gone. As I walked out, her phone started ringing. The name of her boss flashed on the screen. The dominoes were already falling. The destruction was swift and efficient. By the next morning, Rebecca had been put on immediate leave from her agency, pending an investigation into ethical violations. The clothing brand canceled their meeting and publicly announced they were reviewing their influencer relationships. 3 luxury brands she regularly worked with sent formalized termination notices, citing breach of contract and misrepresentation. I didn't just damage her influencer career, I ended it. The industry is small, and word spreads fast. Within days, she was essentially blacklisted. One of the luxury brands went as far as releasing a statement about authenticity and partnerships that, while not naming Rebecca specifically, was clearly prompted by what I'd revealed. They announced a new vetting process for influencers that included checking private social media accounts and requiring signed affidavits about product opinions. Industry insiders started calling it the Rebecca Rule. I stayed at Matt's place while looking for my own spot. Dad came over, bringing energy drinks and helping me sort through my stuff. "You handled this like a man," he said simply, clapping me on the shoulder. Coming from my stoic father, that was the equivalent of a tearful speech. Dad helped me retrieve my Harley from the apartment building's garage, checking it over thoroughly to make sure Rebecca hadn't damaged it out of spite. He'd added some custom touches while I was staying at Matt's. A new leather seat he'd hand-tooled himself and some subtle pinstriping along the tank. "Thought it could use a fresh start too," was all he said. I threw myself into work and wrapped the animation project early. The combat system I built became a hit, praised by devs, hyped by gamers, and even featured in 3 major publications. One called it the biggest leap in animation since motion capture. Suddenly, my name was in the same breath as industry legends. 3 weeks after the breakup, I received an unexpected job offer from one of the most prestigious animation studios in the country, triple my current salary, plus equity, a signing bonus, and a relocation package. The hiring manager mentioned she'd been particularly impressed by my work on the RPG project. "Your ability to deliver exceptional work during obvious personal turmoil shows remarkable professionalism," she said during our call. "We need people who can perform under pressure." I accepted immediately. This was the career breakthrough I'd been working toward for years. Meanwhile, Rebecca's life was imploding in spectacular fashion. According to mutual connections, she'd been completely ghosted by her entire social circle. The trophy wife training group disbanded overnight, with everyone scrubbing their profiles of any connection to her. Her follower count dropped by thousands daily as word spread about her behind-the-scenes behavior. She tried damage control, posting tearful apologies and claims about growing from mistakes, but the internet never forgets. Screenshots of her private posts were circulating widely, with several influencer watchdog accounts doing deep dives on her history of manipulation. Her agency officially terminated her contract after their investigation, releasing a statement about maintaining the highest ethical standards in influencer partnerships. Without her income from sponsored posts, and with her mounting debt, she was in serious financial trouble. I heard through Matt that she'd been frantically applying for regular marketing jobs, but her now toxic reputation was making it impossible to get hired. The day before I was scheduled to leave town, Rebecca showed up at Matt's place. She looked nothing like the polished influencer I'd known, hair unwashed, wearing plain clothes, no makeup. "5 minutes," she begged when I came to the door. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." "Clock's ticking," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "I lost everything," she said, already crying. "My job, my apartment, my car. 3 brands are threatening to sue me for breach of contract. I have nowhere to go. Sounds like consequences." Her BMW had been repossessed the previous week, a fact I learned not from her but from seeing it mentioned in an industry gossip thread. The luxury car she'd posed with in countless photos, always implying she'd bought it through her successful career choices, was actually leased, with payments she couldn't afford. "Tyler, I've learned my lesson. I truly have. I was awful to you, and I see that now. You didn't learn anything. You're just sorry you got caught." I checked my watch. 2 minutes left. "I have $87,000 in credit card debt," she confessed, her voice breaking. "They're garnishing my wages at the coffee shop job I had to take. I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy." The coffee shop job was particularly ironic. She'd spent years posting photos in high-end coffee shops, always careful to be seen as a customer, never staff. Now she was behind the counter, making minimum wage plus tips, serving the same type of influencers she used to compete with. "Funny how you mocked my financial decisions while secretly drowning in debt to maintain your fake online persona. Please don't. I don't know what to do anymore," she sobbed. "I have nothing left. You have exactly what you earned." I closed the door without another word. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a moment before slowly walking back to her car, an old Honda Civic that had replaced her leased BMW. As I watched her drive away, I realized I was finally free of the constant judgment, the subtle put-downs, the feeling that I was never quite good enough. It was like putting down a heavy backpack I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. 6 months later, I'm crushing it at my new job. I've already been promoted to lead a team developing a groundbreaking animation system that's getting industry-wide attention. I bought a condo with an incredible view, added a Triumph Thruxton to the garage alongside my trusty Harley, and started dating a game developer who actually respects what I do and loves riding on the back of my bike. The new job is everything I'd hoped for and more. I'm working with industry veterans whose work I've admired for years, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in animation. My combat system from the RPG has become a case study at several game design schools, and I've been invited to speak at 2 major industry conferences. The team I'm leading is young and hungry, with the kind of raw talent and drive that reminds me of myself a few years back. The condo purchase was my way of reclaiming my space after the apartment fiasco. It's in a converted industrial building with exposed brick and massive windows overlooking the mountains. I've decorated it exactly how I want, my gaming memorabilia prominently displayed, my workspace optimized for actual work rather than Instagram backgrounds, and not a single throw pillow or live, laugh, love sign in sight. The new Triumph was my reward to myself for the promotion. I found it through a connection at my dad's shop. The previous owner had dropped it and damaged the tank, but the engine was pristine. Dad and I spent a weekend fixing it up, just like old times. Now I alternate between the Harley and the Triumph, depending on my mood, hitting those mountain roads whenever I need to clear my head. The new girlfriend, Mia, is the opposite of Rebecca in every way that matters. She's a back-end developer for an indie game studio, brilliant with code and systems design. We met at an industry mixer, where she immediately impressed me by dissecting the animation rigging on a new release. She has zero social media presence beyond a private account she uses to keep in touch with actual friends and couldn't care less about appearances or status symbols. The first time I took her for a ride on the Harley, she showed up in proper riding gear she'd researched herself, asked intelligent questions about the engine modifications, and afterwards said it was the most fun she'd had in months. When I took her to meet my parents, she spent 2 hours in the garage with my dad, genuinely interested in his stories about vintage motorcycles. Matt occasionally updates me on Rebecca's situation. She's working as a barista at some indie coffee shop downtown, living with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment. Her social media accounts are ghost towns. She tried rebranding as a personal growth influencer, sharing her journey of self-discovery, but nobody's buying it. She's down to a few thousand followers with virtually no engagement. Some people spend their whole lives trying to become something they're not. Me? I just became someone she couldn't manipulate and ultimately couldn't have. My career is taking off, my bank account is healthy, and I'm dating someone who actually sees me as a partner. Meanwhile, Rebecca is still posting #blessed on photos of her coffee art, pretending her fall from grace was some kind of spiritual awakening. The best revenge isn't just success. It's knowing that you're exactly where you should be, while the person who tried to change you is desperately trying to rebuild the illusion you shattered.